Okay, welcome to the week 2 go-to session. This is the second of 4 sessions we're going to have for the month. I'm glad to see that we have some people in the room. Last Tuesday we held our first session. It's always on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. Last week no one showed up. I'm not complaining. I get it. We had the holidays upon us. Even I was a little bit more focused last Tuesday on packing and getting ready to head out of town. But when I did show up for this session, surprise, surprise, nobody was really there. So I'm guessing people were also sort of more interested in the holidays. So I uploaded basically last month's recording, and I think I sent out an announcement about this, that I cover the same information from month to month, even though I always host it live. But some of the maybe the specifics would have been a tiny bit different, so I might have referred to a student in the chat section who actually isn't one of your classmates, or I might have referred to an assignment being due on Sunday when it's in fact due on a different date or something like that. But 99% of the information is still accurate for this month. So I hope that people watched that first session and took the associated go-to quiz. Actually, let me show that real quickly, because these are some reminders I wanted to make during that week 1 session. Okay, so here's a list of activities, right? Always trust the dates that are actually on the FSO platform, not necessarily on the assignment sheets. Basically, we're in a really unique situation in which December is just a sort of crazy month, because we only have, how should I say? I'm getting distracted by the chat. Let me let me find my thoughts again. Because last week was interrupted by Thanksgiving, it was almost an empty week. Very few people were sort of alive and moving on Monday and Tuesday of last week. So we're sort of cramming 4 weeks of information into 3 weeks, which means I had to do a little bit of gymnastics in terms of due dates. So even though a lot of you are probably accustomed to having major assignments due every Sunday, things are all shifted around. So you'll notice that the the go-to quiz for last week's session is actually due by tonight. Okay, so normally that's something that I would have hosted on Tuesday of week 1, and you would have had until Thursday of week 1 to take the quiz. But because I knew that everybody would be on holiday, it's due today by midnight. Okay, so there's that. Some of the other stuff that we're going to get into, actually, it's one of the major assignments I discussed in the first session, the first discussion, exploring your appeal. It's due December 6th. So what is that? This Saturday, right? And if you watch the session, I already went through the details on what you need to do. And if you go into the activity, you can see that I've already modeled what you need to do on the board. Right? So if you go into there, you can see, oh, it looks like someone else has posted as well. But there's my modeled example of what you need to do. All this is explained in that first session that you needed to watch, and you need to take the quiz over it by tonight. But for example, the stuff we'll get into today's session, which really has more to do with the essay that you need to write for this class. There's only one essay during the month. Its due date is typically at the end of week 2, but that would seem kind of unfair because we're in week 2 right now, and we're only just starting in a lot of ways. So that's been moved as well. So you can see that the essay itself is actually due during week 3 on December 11th. And off the top of my head, I can't even remember what date that is. The 7th is a Sunday. 8, 9, 10, 11. That sounds like a Thursday, maybe? So anyway, but pay attention to the dates that are actually on the FSO platform, because you can see some things are due on a Thursday, some things are due on a Saturday, some things are... I know it's a little bit crazy, and I do apologize for the madness, but I swear it works out better for you, because instead of forcing you guys to do assignments immediately when we've barely had time to meet as a class, the due dates are extended now, okay? So things are due later than they typically would be, and I've even thrown out one activity that we usually include for the month. So you're actually doing one assignment less than you typically would. A couple of people have mentioned in the chat something about class being on Wednesdays. Yeah, that's something I wanted to cover in the first session as well, but because no one was there and it felt incredibly awkward to speak out loud to no one, especially when I needed to pack, I just put up a video of last month's session. Those of you who are in section 1, I have sections 1 and 2 of English composition. Section 1 was originally supposed to be a class just for campus students, but that all got a little bit messed up, and it turns out it's just a normal online section. So for the 5 of you, I think there's about 5 or 6 of you, who are campus students who thought you were going to be meeting with me live on campus every Wednesday, that's not going to happen. This course is entirely online. because most of the people enrolled and who are on the rosters are online students. That was a little bit of chaos last week as well. Okay, so let's get let's get moving with what we need to do for this week. Okay, so those are my major announcements, right? There's a go-to quiz for last week's go-to session that you need to take for by tonight if you didn't complete the quiz already. And you just need to be aware of those due dates on the FSO platform. Pay attention to those because due dates are a little bit goofy this month. Okay, so let's get rolling. We're actually going to move ahead because last week in that session, I talked about what you need to do for the first discussion activity. We talked about what public service announcements are. I talked about how you need to pick an industry-specific problem to focus on for your public service announcement. I talked about what makes for a good topic and what doesn't. Remember, I said purely informational topics don't really work well for PSAs because PSAs are not reports. They educate a specific audience about a very, very specific problem that needs to be addressed and encourages an audience to do something about it. My posted example of the discussion board kind of models that pretty specifically. And this session also covered, explain what public service announcements are, how to choose a good topic. And it's important that you get really moving on that. I know that this month is a little bit rushed, but it's important to have a really concrete topic in place because the next step after the discussion board activity ends, which is a Saturday, is that for next week you need to write the actual essay. It's a 2 to 4 page paper in which you essentially take your topic and explore it with a bit more care, with a bit of research. I'll even offer suggestions on how to put together the essay a little bit later in the session. So this session is really about the essay, research, and APA style. Okay, APA is the style system we use here at Wholesale. It's the one you'll use in all of your classes. Did a bunch of you use a different system in high school, such as MLA? Usually I find people, if they've had to research or cite information in the past, are more familiar with MLA than APA. We'll get into APA. The good news is if you're somewhat, you kind of remember MLA, even if you don't remember the specifics, it's really the same thing. But the bad news is it's a whole different set of rules. But the logic is the same, okay? The same need to quote someone else's words if you use someone else's words and immediately cite it right there and then in the paper. That's same between MLA and APA. It's just APA has different rules. MLA has a works cited page. APA has what's called a references page, and the way things are formatted on the page are a little bit different. So we'll get into that as well. Okay, so there's the items for today. Pretty much what I just went over: the essay, research, APA style. Actually, I'm going to deal with these out of order. I think I'm going to begin with research. Before I get to that, some quick things about your essay. Again, this is due like Thursday of week 3, so it might seem a little bit weird. Here we are in the beginning of week 2, and I'm actually talking about week 3 stuff. Just bear with me. First of all, before you even think about your essay, check feedback for your week 1 go-to quiz. You won't get that feedback until tomorrow. It's a really odd system in that even if you handed your quiz in already and I wanted to grade it and stay ahead, you would only see your score and not my feedback, because not until the due date has actually passed for an activity does that feedback become available. So look for that sometime tomorrow. But basically I want to look at each of your topics and tell you if you're on the right path or if you're not on the right path. And if you do need to refine your topic a bit, please do so. Because this topic will become the foundation for the entire month. Okay, it will be the foundation for your essay and for your final project, which is an actual multimedia public service announcement. That's what we're aiming for here. So you'll choose a topic, you'll refine it, you'll research it, you'll write an essay about it, but ultimately the final project here is to actually create a public service announcement in the form of a film, a song, a short comic, an audio piece like a podcast. I'm not going to get into that too much now. That's kind of next week's material, but that's what we're working toward, okay? So the 2 big projects are sort of the short 2 to 4 page essay and then a multimedia public service announcement. Okay, so let's talk about research. Let me begin with that stuff before we talk about the essay, because I do want to get some important things down in terms of research. By the way, all 4 quiz questions today appear at the end of the quiz, and I've gotten several comments already from people who are confused because they click on the activity for one of the quizzes. the week one go-to quiz, for instance, for last week, and said, I don't see any questions. That's because the questions are always contained in the go-to session. I just want to ensure that people are actually either attending the session or watching it after the fact, the recording, because if I just put the quiz questions in the quiz, which would be incredibly simple and incredibly fair, watch the video, then go answer the questions on the platform. Unfortunately, and it's not many of you, but there are a handful of students who will just try to answer the questions without answering the session. So that's why you need to find the quiz questions in the session. Reva, essentially, yeah. I mean, I don't take attendance because basically the code to quiz functions as attendance. So that's all I'll say about that. Mech asks, can we change our topic if we're not sure if it's a good one? Yes, absolutely, and I'll give you feedback when I get your go-to quiz for last week tomorrow, because I'll definitely be giving you feedback on your topic. Usually I don't tell you to entirely change it unless it's like way off base. Remember, you're supposed to pick an industry-specific topic, so if you're here to study film, it should be something related to film. If you're here to study music, it should be related to music. Every so often someone says something like, I don't know, I want to pick animal testing. And it's like, okay, but you're here to study graphic design. What's the connection between graphic design and animal testing? So if you're like way off in that sense, yeah, I'll ask you to choose a new topic. But mostly I'll be encouraging you to kind of refine your topic. I don't expect people to get it correct the first time out. As a matter of fact, most people do need to refine their topics. Someone else asked, will this be recorded? Yes, all the sessions are recorded for later viewing. If you want to watch it again, or for a large portion of our class who can't attend live, they watch it. Someone says I'm cutting out. Sometimes that happens when I scroll, so I'll try to remember not to speak and move the cursor at the same time. Okay, back to research. This slide may relate to a quiz question, but I like to think of research in terms of it being like joining a discussion or a conversation, because you'll need at least one piece of research for this assignment. I actually encourage more, like 2, 3, 4 sources, but you need at least one, and the one source needs to come from the Wholesale library database, which I'll show in just a moment. But research isn't what sometimes students think it is. I mean, I was a student once, so I remember that you see the word research and you think, oh, I have to go run somewhere and find a quote to throw in my paper, or I have to go cite a statistic. But that's not research. That's you throwing something in the paper to meet a requirement. True research is like joining a conversation or discussion. Think of the way that like a dinner party might work. You attend a dinner party, there's a group of people talking. Probably you're not going to join in the conversation until you sort of hang back, wait, listen, figure out what people are saying, figure out what your opinion or stance is on whatever is being discussed, and then you'll participate. Research works the same way. If you just rush in and start writing your paper without consulting anybody else, it's sort of like you charging into a conversation without waiting first to see what everybody else is saying. Remember, all of your topics, all of your issues, other people have written about it. So if you're a music person and you want to write about, I don't know, the royalty rates paid out to artists under streaming music contracts, that's great, but lots of other people have written about this. So why not eavesdrop on what those people have said? Why not listen for a while to the conversation that's already been taking place before you ever enter the room, so that you can join the discussion kind of on equal footing? So that's how research operates in theory. I understand people are busy. I'm busy too. When I was a student, I was also incredibly busy. At Wholesale, we have lots of people who have full-time jobs, they have families, they have spouses. So I do understand that you don't have necessarily all the time in the world just endlessly devote to research, but it should be more than you just running somewhere to find a quick quotation to just throw in your paper. Research really means just sitting back and kind of reading as much as you can on the topic so that you can find your voice. And then in doing so, you might occasionally quote some of the people that you read, or cite a fact that's interesting to back up what you're saying. That's how research works. It's like joining a discussion or a conversation. Did I want to go here yet, or did I want to show? Actually, let's switch gears and let me show the Wholesale library databases, because at least one source needs to come from here. Do we all know how to get to the Wholesale library? You should remember from DGL, right? You had lots of projects where you had to go to the library. It's basically you just need to go to Wholesale Connect. I should have bookmarked it. I'm always typing it in. Um, and I think it's this one. The one. No, no, no. It's OrgSync, I think. Okay. I have to choose my school. Wholesale. Then I have to go through the 10 different logins to get in. So allow. Katie asked if I interview an industry professional, does that count as a source? Absolutely, it counts as an interview. It still doesn't qualify as one of the library sources, but absolutely it counts as a source. Okay, so we're in Wholesale Connect. There are lots of ways to get there. You can browse through it, forward through organizations. I always just scroll down to library. And we go down to research databases. Okay, so we're in. You remember this from DGL, hopefully. You have lots of different sources. I recommend checking out as many as you want. Here's one called Business Source Complete that mostly searches business journals. Here's one for communication and mass media. LexisNexis, you probably all know about. That's further down. It's alphabetically organized. Most of you will probably start up here, Academic Search Complete. It's the largest. It's the most comprehensive. If you're not getting good results, you might try some of these other ones. So I'm going to go in. Now, if we remember, I just mentioned that I posted an example of what you need to do for the first discussion. So that's like the major activity that's due this week. It seems a bit odd because this session isn't dealing with this at all because I already covered it in the week 1 session. But the online discussion, which is already open and closes this Saturday, you basically have to essentially write an interesting, attention-grabbing introduction paragraph. Remember in the week 1 session I talked about strategies for writing an introduction, that essentially you should try to find a concrete way or at least an interesting way to kind of grab the reader's attention, define the issue a bit, and then end with your thesis, which for this class is really easy because your thesis will be literally what you're asking a specific audience to do to help alleviate the problem that you're identifying. It doesn't have to be a grand solution. It doesn't have to be a perfect solution. It can be something incredibly small. But just as I'm not going to go over this because I went over this in the week 1 session, but remember my topic has to deal with representations of women in video games. That's my concrete issue that I identified as a problem in gaming. And there's my thesis, which is my call to action, what I want an audience to do about it, right? Though video games companies have done a lot, these companies need to be pressured to do more. Gamers need to write to game publishers and gaming magazines and let their voices be heard. Okay, so that's what I'm asking people to do. I'm asking my specific audience, gamers, to make their voices heard. Okay, it's not a grand solution. It's not going to change the world tomorrow, but at least it's asking someone to do something about the issue. Okay, now here's the great thing. My topic is so easy that it gets lots of great results in Academic Search Complete. If I just type like video games, oh gosh, I forget what triggers it. Gender maybe? Representation. And then hit enter. Okay. The first thing you should do is go to the left and click on full text because some of these articles aren't truly available. Like this is just an abstract. So even though the title sounds interesting, Selling Gender, Associations of Box Art Representation of Female Characters in Video Games, it may not seem 100% on topic, but there might be something interesting in there. An article about box art and how women are portrayed on the covers of video games. But unfortunately, this article isn't available. There's just an abstract, which is like a summary of the article, but the article itself isn't available. So to check for stuff that's actually truly there, we'll click on full text. And you can see, okay, here's a pretty good one, right? Big breasts and bad guys, depictions of gender and race in video games. That seems pretty on topic. It's from 2008. I would probably maybe search for something a little bit more recent, but 2008 isn't so old that it might not still have useful information. By the way, a second, third, or fourth source can come from online as long as it's a trusted source. So in DGL, digital literacy, you learned about that as well, right? We understand the difference between Wikipedia and the New York Times. We understand the difference between someone's personal blog and, I don't know, for video games, an online journal would be something like GameSpot or IGN or Game Informer. Okay, those are trusted sources. They have editors who work for those publications, even though they're online. So remember your DGL stuff that you learned. Riva's commenting that she agrees with my topic. Okay, good. And by the way, I chose like a social topic to model as my example. You might not think it's that big of an issue or concern. That's fine. But most sane people would say they can kind of see that it's an issue. It might not be a problem for you, but it is maybe a specific issue that's it's worth concentrating on, and it's very very specific. But for example, if I just do a Google search, so I'll do gender representation video games. Okay, here's, by the way, is there anything good about Wikipedia? I mean, you hear so many people saying to stay away from it, it's terrible, never use it. Does it have any value at all, though? Riva says yes, but she stays away. People are just saying yes, but not explaining why. Okay, I'll explain why. Brandon says to get a basic idea to do layer research. Okay, good. The real power is that Wikipedia itself maybe isn't great because we don't know who's writing it. But you know how you can just kind of tell the ones that are slightly better written than others? I would still never directly... I'll try to stop speaking because when I scroll, I think my voice cuts out. But I would never cite or quote from Wikipedia itself. But if it seems like a pretty solid entry, I can definitely go down and look at the references at the bottom because that might contain good stuff. So as you can see here, there's like 40, 50 references at the bottom, and there might be interesting stuff to look through here. Actually, let me try different search. Usually I get this one article that comes up. I can't remember what I did. Like this one actually seems like it's pretty well researched, but I still don't know who this person is, so I wouldn't quote or cite from here. I can't find what I'm doing. Usually I get this great IGN article that comes up. I'm gonna try one more. Okay, I'm not finding it, but that's fine. My point is actually I'm doing an interesting thing here, which is, I mean, here's something, Slate.com. Okay, if you don't know Slate, Slate is a pretty trusted source. Okay, so here's something about women in gaming. Women make up half of all gamers. You might think that that's not completely on topic, but it might be. Maybe one of the points I want to make in my essay is that, hey, video games need to be more responsible because the old stereotype that there's only guys who play video games is actually not true, that women are playing more than ever. So I might check out an article like this published in Slate. Okay, so you can use, at least one source needs to come from the Wholesale library. Other sources can come from online, but they just have to be trusted sources, okay? Sources that you've heard of. So anything from USA Today to the New York Times, to the Washington Post, to GameSpot, to Rolling Stone, right? It doesn't have to be like super scholarly. It just has to be a trusted source. Okay, I'm actually going to keep this open because I'm going to need to come back to it to show something. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, my topic's super easy. Okay, it yields results. The rest of you are really going to have to play with these search fields. You might have to be clever and use lots of different ways to describe your topic, or you might want to even anticipate the kind of results you're looking for and do searches that way. You can also reverse engineer, which means maybe start with online research first using trusted online sources, and then when you get a better sense of what to look for, you can come back to the Wholesale library database. But you'll have to vary your search terms, sometimes making them more specific, sometimes making them more general. But you won't be able to come up with something in 5 minutes like I just did. It might take you 45 minutes. It might take you an hour to find things. Okay? So, back to PowerPoint. Let's start talking about APA style. Okay, so style, not style like this woman in the picture here who has fantastic style, but APA style, which is the citation style we use here at Wholesale. APA basically covers three major categories. First, layout and format, so things like paragraphing, font, page numbers, header, in-text citations, and that end of the paper references page. So we're going to actually, if we can, I'd like to practice in real time how to set up the layout or format for your document. So if you have it in place, all you have to do is save it and then you have it. So if you want to, if you have Microsoft Word, I'll encourage you to go ahead and open it because we can do this together. You also, well, I'll go ahead and type it into the chat. Project APA info. This is also interesting, useful site because it covers in-text citations, the references page. But what's really useful here is it shows what APA looks like, so you kind of know what you're aiming for. Okay, it's going to take a while for it to load because I don't know. When I have too many things running, this computer runs slow, especially with the go-to session running. But it shows you what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a Microsoft Word document. I'm using the Mac version, so if you're using the PC version, you'll have the same tools, but you might just need to search to find them. If you don't have Microsoft Word, you can use something like Google Docs or another sort of, or I think it's called Microsoft OneDrive, I think is the name of it. There are online tools now that give you word processing functions, but you might need to search for where these tools are. Basically, I have a blank page, and the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Layout tab. By the way, this will be recorded, so if you need to go back and watch this specific part and this specific part only, you can do so. But if we go to the Layout tab, we have margins here, top, bottom, left, right. These all need to be set to 1. Okay, and you may not see it, but it's actually making the changes on the fly as I change things. Okay, so all my margins are set to 1. The next thing I need to do is create my header, which here is pretty simple. We just double click in the top inch of the page and the header opens. Now, APA is complicated, so I even need to remind myself of things. So I have to look and see, okay, running head. So we have the words running head in lowercase, and then we have our essay title in all caps. Okay, so I'm going to do that, running head, colon. And I'm just going to call this placeholder title because I don't have a title right now for my essay. And we need to insert page numbers. So if we go to the top, insert page numbers, we want it right up here, the top right corner, which on my version of Word is already set up that way. So I'll just click OK, and that puts a nice little 1 there. And boom, we have our header. The next thing we're going to do is hit enter until we get to approximately the middle of the page, and we're going to write 3 things. And again, I always have to remind myself what order they go in. Title, name, university. So oops, I'm going to type my title again. It's not in all caps here. I'm going to put my name and the university I'm associated with. Okay, this all needs to be double spaced and centered, so I'm going to do that. Changes to 2.0 for double spacing. Click the little center button. And I'm going to make this smaller so I can you can just eyeball it. So actually that looks pretty close to the center to me, right? That looks good. I'm going to keep it there. So then we just keep hitting enter until we get to second page. Okay, and as soon as we get on the center page, we stop and we put our title again. I know it seems crazy to keep typing the title again and again and again. It's centered. We hit enter again. Notice I'm hitting enter once, okay? The document is already set up to be double spaced. I'm not hitting enter 12 times or 3 times, just once. The first paragraph would begin to the left, so we need to bump that over to the left. We indent by clicking tab, and we can type. We can start typing away. My paper goes here. I'm going to copy and paste this to show something. Okay, so we keep typing away, right? And let's say I've reached the end of my paragraph. Okay, I'm just going to do it a couple more times. There's the end of my paragraph. If we need to begin a new paragraph, we hit enter once, indent, and keep typing away. Okay, we don't hit enter 2 or 3 times. I don't know if this is true, but one student explained to me that the reason why I see so many papers that want to do this is because they think it looks too crowded or weird. But next time you're reading a book like a Harry Potter novel or the Hunger Games, you don't see like 10 spaces between paragraphs. Okay? That's not standard. So APA format is all this kind of stuff. Double spacing, indenting paragraphs, using one consistent font style for the entire document. Okay? Now, let's say we reach the end of my paper. Let's say this is page 3 or 4. Okay, my paper is over. We keep hitting enter to begin a new page. As soon as we get to the new page, we stop. There we go. And we immediately center the word references. And this is where your entries for your references page are going to go. Now, if you're following along with me, or if you just do this on your own time by going back and watching this part of the session, if you get this all set up, then you're done. You can just hit the, well, you're not done, but you can hit the ground running in terms of writing your essay and not worrying about spacing or centering or setting up the header or setting up page numbers. You've essentially got the template in place, okay? So it's really, really easy, and it takes all 2 seconds to set up. But please take those 2 seconds to set things up, because you do get some points for not just APA format, but for the quality of the research you do and how that research is handled. And so if your paper just gets handed in some invented, made-up style, you might lose like 10 points out of 30 for that. So why throw 10 points away when you can just easily grab them by setting up your paper really, really quickly? Okay, we're actually going to come back to this in just a second. But I want to return to my discussion of APA. So we just covered layout and format, right? Paragraphing, font, page numbers, header. Next, in-text citations. I'm not going to blow this up because I'm worried that the screen will freeze because I have too many things running. So let me make this a little bit bigger. This is sort of a dumbed down version of in-text citations. It's 100% accurate, but it's sort of, I'm just going to give you the essence of what in-text citations do, and I'm going to point you to other places where you can read more. But essentially, any quotation, fact, or any sort of information that comes from research needs to be cited. So it's not just when you quote stuff that it needs to be cited. Even if you put things in your own words, but that information comes from somewhere else, it needs to be cited. And there are basically 2 ways to handle this. First, you can take the author's last name and the year of publication for whatever you're citing, and find a way to put it in the beginning of the sentence by following a format similar to this. Like I just made this up. According to Smith, and then in parentheses goes the publication year, 2008. Then comes my quotation. I just put insert quotation, okay? But you just have to imagine that there's a quotation here. And then after the quotation, you put a page or paragraph number. Or you can save everything to the end. You can find your own way to lead into the quotation. For example, a recent study states, quote, blah, 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 and just save everything. Author's last name, year of publication, page or paragraph number. Save it all for the end in parentheses. Okay, so here, Smith, 2008, paragraph 4, separated by commas. Why am I saying page or paragraph number? Because it's not a matter of just choosing one or the other. It's not like both are great, but you have your choice, like chicken or fish. Why would there be a difference? Like, why would you sometimes need a paragraph number? Most of the stuff you're going to find through the Wholesale library was originally appeared in journals or newspapers or something like that, so they have page numbers. Why in the world would we ever need to get away from the page number, which is pretty much standard, and go with a paragraph number instead? Any guesses? Educated guesses? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay, I'll go ahead and give the answer. Think of online readings, right? So that Slate thing we just looked at, right? Or if you find a really interesting article that's published in Rolling Stone online or IGN online or any number of online sources, they typically sometimes won't have page numbers. So the only way to indicate where in the article that comes from is to give the paragraph number. Okay, that helps me find exactly where in the article it comes from. So that's when we use a paragraph number instead for those non-traditional sources. Okay. Oops, I got ahead of myself. And let's say you're not directly quoting something, but you're sharing information that comes from another source. The same rule applies. So here, these words here are my own words, but I want to indicate that they come from Smith's article. The ideas come from Smith's article. So I can do his name and the year put in parentheses at the beginning of the sentence. According to Smith 2008, American students are underperforming in comparison to their world peers, page 42. Or, like with the quote, I can save everything for the end. Okay? While we're talking about quotations, some things to keep in mind, and this might be a quiz question, so hang in there. Some things to be careful of. Do not photobomb quotations, facts, or statistics. What do I mean by that? You all know what photobombing is, right? It's that social media phenomenon where you're taking a picture and someone jumps in the picture, either intentionally or accidentally. We call that photobombing. When you drop quotations, facts, or statistics in out of nowhere, that's the equivalent of photobombing. Because the reader, me or someone else, is reading along, we're doing just fine, good, 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 and then boom, a quotation appears. Or boom, a fact appears, or a quote, or a statistic, or something like that. Quotations or any sort of research always need to be set up, okay? And not just set up in terms of what I showed on the last slide, which is, we have something like according to Smith or a recent study states, all that's part of it. But overall, like the quotation needs to fit comfortably within the paragraph that surrounds it. Okay, like logically, just as one sentence would lead into another sentence, your quotation should naturally fit within the language that surrounds it. To make sure you're doing this, there's something called the sandwich technique. So if you think of like a sandwich that you eat, we set up the quotation, which is like one piece of bread. We deliver the quotation, which is like the meat or veggies if you're a vegetarian, and then follow up that quotation with commentary, which is like the other piece of bread. Second thing to be careful of, avoid long quotations that speak entirely for you. Remember, occasional use of research helps support your points, not the other way around. I do see instances, not often, but sometimes a student finds a long passage, and the passage is so well written and so skillfully worded that the student thinks, I could never express myself that way. So they just take the whole paragraph and drop it into their essay. But what that means is that someone else is speaking entirely for you. And the problem is if there's too many quotations like that and I take them all out, then very little of your own words, your voice remains. So we use small bits of, or not small bits, but we use occasional research to support what we're saying, not the other way around. Plus, if the quotations go over 40 words, they actually need to be placed in a very special format called block format. It's not difficult, but it's an extra step to learn. So why do it unless you absolutely have to? So be careful of that, okay? Next, the references page. Why do I have a big sorry sign hanging up? The reason I have the big sorry sign is because I don't have enough time in this session or this Tuesday or this week to cover every single instance you'll encounter on the references page. But I can show you a couple tricks and techniques. First of all, if you find something through the Wholesale library database, okay, there's Project APA info, so jot that down if you haven't already. But let's go back to our search result list for my topic with video games and gender representation. Okay, here's this article I like, right? Big breasts and bad guys. I just need to click on the PDF to get to the article itself, and then I can read it, determine if it's useful or not. If it is, I can quote from it or cite from it. But you have this function here to the right, and you can see the little thing comes up, cite. It's a citation generator. I have no problem with using citation generators. You just need to fix the tiny mistakes that the citation generator makes, and it makes a lot of them. So this is why it's important to know how to deal with APA on your own as well. But if I click on it, you can see I get the APA citation. And this one's pretty close to correct, actually. There's just one big error, which is in APA format. In MLA, okay, yes, major, each keyword in a title does get initial capitalization. In APA, it doesn't. Only the very first word or the first word after a colon gets capitalized, but all others are lowercase. So I'm going to fix that, but I'll take it. Okay, I'm going to copy it over to my Microsoft Word. Remember, I have my references page all set up. So I'm going to start, I'm going to start to the left. Just paste that bad boy in there. Chances are when you paste it in there, the font is going to be different, so I'm going to fix that. Okay, now it's all in the same format. I also have to fix indentation. The references page, okay, up here we have paragraphs, right? Indent the first line. Other lines in the paragraph are not indented. Oswaldo, I'll show you again in just a second. For the references, it's the opposite, okay? The first line is not, move over. The first line is not indented, but any lines afterwards, will you stop doing that? Now everything's, as you can see, I'm having trouble getting it to do what I want. I don't want to move that one. I just want to move, there we go. There we go. Okay, so it's the opposite, right? First line is not indented, other lines are. Now I need to go in and fix all that stuff. Okay, I think I have too many things open. That's why I'm not able to do anything. Give me 2 seconds here. I'm going to try to close a bunch of stuff. Oswaldo, you can find the cite function here on the right by clicking cite. And actually, I'm going to see if I can find another thing. Gosh, there's so much to cover in this session. This has, let me see if I can make this bigger. This has a DOI number, which stands for Digital Object Identifier. You don't need to remember that ever. You just need to remember that if you see a DOI number, you have everything that the reference needs, okay? This number, if I paste it into my browser, it will take me right to your article. If it doesn't have a DOI number, let me see if I can quickly find one that's like that. Let me click on this guy here. Okay, I'm going to click on Cite. Okay, so that one has a DOI too. When I need to find one that doesn't, I can't find one. You know, I'm just going to click on this one. Let me try one more. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. My computer is running hot, by the way. It's going to explode any second. Okay, Cite. Cite. APA. Okay, I'm striking out. Everything has a DOI, which is great. If you have that, terrific. If you don't, you need to include a permalink. So let's pretend this one doesn't have a DOI number. I'll go ahead and get the permalink. And if there were no DOI number, let's pretend this first article that I pasted in here doesn't have one. I would just need to put the words. Okay, I gotta close some stuff. Let me see if I can close. Let me close this. And gosh, I have no idea what else I can close. Okay, that seemed to be enough. Okay, it's all broken, but hopefully you get the gist of it, okay? I'm going to close Microsoft Word because I think I got too many things open. Don't save, close, quit. Okay, I'm going to close Safari. I'm going to close everything. I got to get out of this because I actually have one more thing to show. Your McGraw-Hill readings for this week, they're almost all about APA. Okay, so you can find more information there. I'm going to risk going there. Okay, so we go to McGraw-Hill Connect. Okay, we log in. I swear there's a point to this, so hang in there. Come on. Okay, so here's our class, December. And if we scroll down to this week's readings, okay, there are a couple of them. Incorporating research is really useful. Here, lots of useful stuff like how can I integrate source material into my writing. So it will show you examples of how to do so naturally. Like I mentioned the sandwich technique, but be sure to read this stuff. Again, all these readings are incredibly short, so if you go through it, you'll be fine. APA formatting, this is incredibly useful. Okay, so how do I make entries on a references page? If we click on there, you'll get even more examples of just what I was talking about. Most of your stuff will be down at the bottom. For example, sources on the internet. How do you cite a website? A web page. How do you sign a journal? Here's just what I went over. What if your journal has a DOI? Then you're great. You just need to include the DOI. But what if it doesn't? You need to put the words retrieve from and then the URL. Okay, so it covers all this stuff. I'm going to close this because I have one more thing to show you, and it's probably going to be a hog on my machine. You also have this source. It's uploaded as one of your assets. I don't know where I put it, but it's there somewhere. It's called the APA Basics PowerPoint presentation. Again, you have this as one of your materials. It's like 50 slides long, but I'm telling you, if you take, I would say it might take you 30 minutes to go through these 50 slides. If you just take those 30 minutes, you won't have any questions about APA. It will seem all just perfectly clear. So please go through it. Okay, I'm not going to go through it now, but it talks about what APA is and what it seeks to do. If we get farther into the presentation, it covers the stuff I mentioned, like here's an Intext citation, author last name, publication, page or paragraph number. But it also answers all those nitpicky questions like, what if your article has no author? Well, just use the first 3 words of the article title, put in quotation mark. What if your article has no date? Well, you just use the abbreviation ND. What if it's a one-page article or comes from the web? Use a paragraph number instead of a page number. So if you take the time, the 30 minutes or so, to go through this entire thing, you won't have any questions because it covers all of this stuff. Okay? And as we get deeper into it, it shows issues related to the references page, capitalization rules, etc. Okay? So take the time to go through that. Okay, back to my APA thingy. Now this is freezing. This is like the worst session ever. Let me see if I can close this and reopen it. Force quit. Apologize to everybody in the room. I know this isn't exactly exciting. Okay, now let me see if I can open that up again. Oh, what is it called again? Research? No. PSA. Oh no, it's under APA. We're going to do it the old-fashioned way. Ever since I switched to Yosemite, I can't find anything. Okay, there we go. It opened up again. We're almost at the end of the session, so hang in there. I apologize for the real quick stuff about essays. Okay, there's no single way to begin or to write an essay, but there are some pretty universal things. This week's discussion activity actually focuses on this stuff here. So your assignment is to do this, to write an introduction paragraph that hopefully begins with a hook. I talked about different ways to hook the reader to make an opening more interesting, more concrete during the week 1 go-to session. But an introduction paragraph should hopefully hook the reader somehow, define the issue briefly, and end with that thesis, which for this class will be your actual call to action, right? What you're asking a specific audience to do about your problem. For my topic, it's asking gamers themselves to make their voices heard. And after that, it's really a matter of getting into the body of the paper, and we use separate paragraphs to make different points. For example, maybe I have one paragraph related to my topic where I want to give examples of the problem that I'm talking about. That would be the focus of one paragraph. Maybe in another paragraph, I want to make the case that game companies should care about this because women actually are making up a larger and larger percentage of total game players. Okay, that could be a separate paragraph, right? There might be 2 or 3 or even 4 separate points that I want to make. just I would need to make sure that each of those receives its own paragraph, because when we switch topics within a single paragraph, that seems a bit jarring. And unfortunately, I don't really have a way to describe this any better, though you do actually have a sample student paper that's available as one of your assets. And if you look at that, you'll get a pretty good sense of what that looks like. But basically, we have some sort of introduction paragraph. We have separate body paragraphs that focus on one issue at a time, or separate points we want to make. Make sure to discuss your call to action or your solution before the conclusion. Sometimes students forget that. They have an awesome introduction. They do a great job talking about the issue in depth and using research and making different points. But when it comes time to actually get into what they're asking a specific audience to do, they can sometimes forget about that. So don't forget the call to action. Okay. So basically, introduction, some body paragraphs, your call to action, and then a conclusion of some sort. This should seem pretty familiar. These are kind of like essay basics, right? Introduction, body paragraphs, conclusion. Okay, who's ready for quiz questions? Here they come. There are 4 of them. Quiz question number 1 relates to an earlier slide that I showed at the beginning. Engaging or participating in research is like participating or joining in a blank. Okay, I had a sort of extended metaphor there, that engaging in research is like participating in a... I'm going to let the question linger there for a moment or two so people can write it down or take a screenshot. But this is quiz question number 1. So when you go to take the quiz, you won't see this question appear. You'll just see a blank space to fill out. You're answering this question. Okay, quiz question number 2. Dropping in a quotation out of nowhere is similar to what social media, for example Instagram, annoyance. Okay, I just made a comparison that when a reader is reading along in an essay and then boom, a quote appears, or boom, a fact or statistic appears. That's similar to what social media annoyance. By the way, my 10-year-old daughter has 110 Instagram followers. I have 8, so there's something horribly wrong about that. Quiz question number 3. Coming right now. It's not even so much a question as it is a command, something you have to do. I want you to go to the Wholesale library database and find a source, okay, a quality source, one that you think you can use for your essay. If you end up using it or not, that's a different matter. But at least I want something that's on topic and that shows me that you're making steps towards doing research. And once you find that article, I want you to name the title, the author, and the publication, and briefly summarize the article's main focus. No, I don't need a gigantic paragraph or a mini essay. I just need a couple sentences to tell me the gist of the article. Okay? But show me that you can get moving on this research part. So find an article through the Wholesale library database and just give me that basic information. And finally, quiz question number 4, which is connected to quiz question number 3. Once you find that article, show me that you can create an end of the paper reference for this article. Okay? When I say end of the paper reference, I mean you'll create a citation that would, actually citation is the wrong word, you'll create an actual entry that you would put on your references page. Most people have no problem understanding this, but sometimes students do, I don't know, they create an Intext citation. That's not what I'm asking for. I had to destroy the Microsoft Word document, but what I was doing there when I copied and pasted in the APA citation and I fixed indentation, I was going to fix capitalization issues, but then the document was freezing on me. I talked about the digital object identifier, that DOI number. Okay, that's the end of the paper references page. Sometimes students drop in Intext citations for this question, or sometimes they just copy and paste the references page from that actual article. No. I just want you to take that article and create an end of the paper references entry for it, okay? So, easy stuff, hopefully. Questions? Preguntas? Things have gotten quieter in the last seconds here. I know I covered a lot. Hopefully you followed along while I was setting up the format in Microsoft Word. If not, you can watch that section later. Remember, you have the McGraw-Hill textbook that covers APA. You have that 50-slide PowerPoint presentation that if you take the time with it, that covers APA thoroughly. It's really not that difficult. If you've worked with MLA before, you know that yes, it's somewhat of a pain, but it's actually pretty simple because it's just about finding the right model to follow and then following it. It really is that simple. But are there any questions? I know we covered a lot. We covered research, we covered APA, we covered the essay a little bit. Oswaldo says, just to be sure, the last question, did we have to create a reference about the article that we chose? Yeah, so whatever article you found through the Wholesale library database, you'll create a reference for it. Just like I was doing with that video game article, right? I created a citation for it. That's what you'll be doing for question 4. I just want to double check that you can follow APA rules. Any other questions? Or are we all... I mean, I'm hoping that there are no questions because this session, despite the technology freezes, was incredibly lucid and incredibly clear, and that's why people don't have any questions. Is that the situation? I hope. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.